welcome back to Comic Book Nation, the only show that's doing it all for geek culture and the official podcast of comicbook.com. I am your host, Kofi Outlaw, and with me here in the comic book studios, I have my co-hosts. The one-man cardiac hype machine, Matthew Aguilar, is with us.
What's up?
The heel of our geek culture show himself and wrestling expert, Mr. Connor Casey's in the studio with me.
Oh, let me talk to you.
And in her Witcher-themed garb, we have the queen of the podcast herself making a comeback after a well-earned vacation and some struggles with our good old friend, the Vid. Janelle Wheeler's back. How you feeling?
What's going on? Hey, everybody. Really glad to be here.
All right, so this is our crew. We're back, baby. It's been a couple of crazy weeks. We put in a bunch of work before the Flash, and then everybody kind of like did their Avengers split, R&R. Connor's moving. Janelle was on vacation. I don't do anything else, so I'm just here. But, you know, I like that you guys do stuff. But there's been a lot to do this summer, and so, yeah, we got another thick show for you guys today. There's a lot to talk about, so at the beginning, we love to just give you a rundown, so we're going to give you our rundown of our rundown and everything we're about to do here so you can get a little lay of the land. Also, program note, if you guys still aren't subscribed to the @Comic Book Nation Twitter feed and our Comic Book Nation YouTube page or on your favorite podcast platforms, please do so. We are dropping episodes like weight these days, so much that we got to fit into this show that we have multiple shows basically now. If you check our YouTube page, Connor put up an awesome wrestling video, which is about
AEW Fight Forever. It was me and Chris Killian, about 20 minutes just reviewing the game and what it all means for wrestling games going forward.
All right, you definitely should check that out. We also dropped a bonus round episode this week where we did our kind of live or not live, but our soon after reactions to the DC Superman reboot casting and who James Gunn picked as his new Clark Kent and Lois Lane. So be sure to to check that out, because we also talk about the Flash's box office seeming to be on a nosedive into the ground and what it means for the future of the DCU and what kind of pressure that now puts on Superman Legacy. And it's me, Connor, Matt, and Turn Up Charlie Ridgely. So that was a spirited discussion you guys should also check out this week. Now, for our show today, we are going to be doing some news, including a disgruntled DC employee and a regrettable TV delay due to the writer's strike. We're going to be reviewing Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, The Witcher Season 3, Part 1. Matt is ready to cook. He's been sitting here just bubbling in the pot for weeks. We're ready to cook on that, so we're going to let him cook. We got to talk about the second episode of Secret Invasion. And we're going to kind of let you guys know some things that are on the small screen that we are hyped to tell you about. I'm going to talk about The Bear Season 2. Matt's going to talk about my adventures with Superman and Nimona. And Connor is going to break down some WWE happenings. Money in the Bank is coming up, so we got to talk about a wrestling forecast. Plus, this is Comic Book Nation, and what would we be if we did not talk about comic books? So stay tuned for all of that. But up top, in the news, Janelle, we've missed the sound of your voice. Please take us through what's going on in the news this week.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, on top of all the Superman awesome announcements, I'm going to say awesome because I love the castings, both of them. I didn't get to say my piece on that. So
go off. Take a minute. We haven't heard from you.
I'm just so excited. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is one of my favorite shows ever. So to see her in that role, I'm very excited. But we also have some more DC news that unfortunately came out, and this is having to do with the lovely actor. This is Kiersey Clemons, and she's reflecting with Nylon Magazine about her experience as Iris and kind of feeling a little dejected and not seen, kind of dismissed, and quite honestly replaceable after all of the stuff that was going on with The Flash. And we know that Flash just came out in theaters. I was honestly surprised that it kind of did so poorly because I really enjoyed the film. But now that everything's kind of out and we're hearing from the actors and things like that, she did come out and say, and I quote, "I was freaked out because at one point there were rumors going around online that I was getting recast, which is humiliating." That is such a pingy word there because I understand that. And then she also was saying that, she cried more over this than she did smile. She said the only time she really smiled about this interaction was, or like this film, was on the red carpet at the premiere. And I personally, hearing that that's really sad, because this should be, it's a huge role for her. So, what do you guys think about all of this? I was honestly shocked when it came out, because I just didn't realize it was such a frustrating experience. I didn't really think about it. About her experience.
Isolated, it's just like, that's an unfortunate part of the business, maybe you could say that, but like then you start to get into like the Ray Fisher of it all, the Gal Gadot of it all, and it just seems like only the ones with big enough muscles to scare the executives were kind of like coming out of this unscathed, like Momoa and Cavill or Affleck. Everybody else in between just seems like they've been through the ringer, and this is the weird transitional thing we've heard about, and that Ray Fisher's, I'm not going to weigh in on those stories because I'm always a truth is in the middle kind of guy. I want to be careful about all that stuff, but I will say that like you can't deny like the kind of common things we've been able to piece together from all these different stories. I do like wisdom of the crowd, and it just seems like that transition between what Snyder wanted to build, what the studio backed him for, and then Connor went off on this on our DC bonus round this week. The fact that they just about faced and said, okay, halfway through, people didn't like Batman and Superman, that baloney sheet we tried to press together and throw in theaters. Oh God, we got to change all of this now. And then trying to do that while you had already committed to a vision, it seems like it just was so messy, so ugly, and just so like unhealthy for everybody involved, from the actors to the crew people to the creative heads. Who's been talking well about any of this?
The shrapnel goes far. There's a lot of that.
Neither Snyder nor Whedon were happy. None of the actors were happy. It seems like the executives were just up there, red weddinging, like trying to stab. You have Jeff Johns' faction, Charles Rove's faction, Walter Hamada's faction. And then all of the Zaslav comes in and is just like, what is this mess with a flamethrower? And now we're doing DC Studios. But the more the stories come out, the more I'm thinking we're all in the wrong business. We need to quit this show and start researching as a team and doing like the DCEU memoir book that'll get us paid and sell it to Netflix as a docuseries.
But I think you're right, because I think all of if you go and piece all these stories together and various behind the scenes reports and things like that, it does not paint a great picture. But I like it when we hear from the people who are like, it brings a human face to it. It sounds like it's very easy to kind of, it's just like, this is studio politics and things like that. But like, this has a real effect on people. Like, these are actors. This is their line of work. And to have your job dangled in front of you publicly would absolutely suck. Like that's a thing that like I feel like anyone should be able to relate to. Your job is just sitting out there and people are saying like, hey, you're losing it. Like that. No one, like, that would wreck anybody. And so it's unfortunate.
That's never a street conversation. That's not a street conversation with strangers.
We talk about this in the macro sense of, hey, the film did poorly, hey, the production was a mess. We don't think about it in the micro sense of, hey, for this one actress, she was attached to this role for nearly a decade. Her part in the original Justice League was cut. We didn't get to see it until the bizarre circumstances of the director's cut version of it that came out years later during a global pandemic. And then with The Flash, this movie was announced in 2016, and how many directors, how many producers before we so much as even get this production off the ground. Your star is an absolute train wreck in the press and in the legal sense, and then the movie comes out, it's a mess. Her scenes are nothing but these awkward little interactions with Ezra Miller, which feel like they're in a completely different movie from the rest of the film. It's just, from her perspective, how could you not look at this thing with anything else than just pure frustration? And want to just completely wipe your hands of the superhero genre altogether?
Look, after these, like Janelle referenced, like, there's some just really personal stuff here, and like, I don't blame her. Like, she never wants to touch that character or touch that universe. I get it, 100% get it, and cannot blame her. So unfortunately, that is not the only unfortunate news we have in the news.
There's a segue.
It's so
Poor
sad,
Kizzy Clemens too. I just want to say, like, She was so good and dope, and it looked like her, and that was 2015, it looked like her world was going to really open up, and this is the mess she's gotten attached to, like non-character love interest in the Flash side of the DCEU. So I hope she hooks up with Rick Famuyiwa and goes over to Star Wars or gets back into some awesome, like, new kind of smaller movies and stuff, because she was so good in that movie. Her and Shameik Moore and Tony Rivoli, like, that was it was those three, and you just see her compared to, you know, what's happened with the other two, and that's just like, yeah, it's not right being tied up in this mess like this for this. So anyway, more good news. Let's go.
So, well, maybe we'll see her in something we like to call The Boys. So, The Boys,
awesome.
season 4. I know we've all been waiting for a very long time. At least I have. And I didn't even think that there would be any sort of delay whatsoever, because this show has already wrapped. But unfortunately, The Boys creator Eric Kripke, I hope I'm saying that right, has confirmed that the release of season 4 is going to be postponed because of the writer's strike, which sucks. He's saying that the writing process isn't all the way done. They still have things they need to write in. And that is what is creating this holdup. He even did like a call to action, like tell the studios to make a fair deal. Like he's saying this on his Twitter to try to get like the fans to rally. And I think it's really such a shame, because this was kind of the one thing that I thought was going to get us a little bit into the after effects of, you know, the strike. And so it's very frustrating for me personally. How are you guys feeling about this?
Oof. Because Hollywood studios don't know. They think they're just battling the writers. Wait till they get those Homelander psycho nuts out there. Those Homelander fans, like,
Yeah.
you know, be like, you can't keep him down. Bring him back. No. Just like, yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, it sucks. And I didn't even think about it. I was like, oh, that's done. I knew, because they had announced it like forever ago. Oh, that's done and in the can. I was like, okay, cool. You know, that's that vault that, you know, studios keep talking about. Oh, we got all this content like in the vault. We're good. And it's like, the more and more we go forward, the more it seems like that is not the case.
See, this feels like just one of many stories we're going to get where it's like, hey, this is really close to being done. Writer strike. Yeah. And then when SAG decides, hey, we're
then it's really
with
done.
The writers, everyone's done.
Yeah, then it's really done.
We were like, I remember hopping on this show during the pandemic, and it was a drought of content.
Yeah.
And we were like, please, for the love of God, can COVID end so we can get content again? And now we're in the after effects of that, which is just a flooding of, hey, here are movies that have been sitting, just waiting to be released, that were done, but thanks to COVID, stuff got held up. And now we're about to get that drought again, and then after that, it's going to be another rush of sudden content where it's, hey, Boys Season 4 is ready, and Gen V is ready, and Gen V Season 2 is ready. And we're going to be like, okay, there's too much again.
Yeah, there's too much again.
Slow it down. And we're all sitting here in 2026 going, maybe now things will calm down. And I'm not counting on it.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, man,
pretty
I
apt.
don't know. Right now, it feels like the entertainment industry and the airline industry are both held together with spit and Band-Aids. Like, yeah, I don't know what's happening, but we're just like, come on, keep rolling, keep that tire on. It's like wobbling. There's like one lug nut left. Yeah, it's not good. Yeah, but I think this is kind of startling because as we're all saying, and I think like more people realize, like, oh no, this is real. Like even things we thought confident, like, oh, that's all right, I'm gonna have like this enough content. It's like, no, if they have to rewrite one line, like the technicalities of this are so crazy when you look at union rules. And it's like, yeah, we found out we can't reference this thing, or we had a reference to this and this changed, or this person got arrested. Like we got to change this line. Whole season frozen. Like done. Yeah, and it's crazy.
It's like, but Deadpool, you can dub over the voice because he has a mask on for Deadpool 3, and it's like, yeah, well, when SAG strikes, then this doesn't matter.
Oh, and I didn't realize that Demon of Nine says Star Trek Strange New World stopped season 3 production. Because of the strike. So like
they were in the middle.
There was a moment in time where every announcement from a game studio was, hey, it's delayed.
Yeah.
For like 2 years. It was like, hey, it's delayed because of the pandemic. We're getting to that spot where it's like we're going to just keep seeing things like delayed, pushed, postponed, you know.
Yep. Gaming's eating good right now.
Well, yeah, because they had, again, you're talking about the roller coaster. Yeah. They had that time. They've had that time to get stuff in the pipeline and stuff, and we're going to have that probably for another. Because unfortunately, 2023 has already been hit with a bunch of delays. Starfield's finally going to come out, you know, but like
allegedly.
allegedly, but there's still other games that have been pushed and pushed. And so maybe we'll be eating good for about another year or two, but then if something else hits there, it's the same
and then
thing.
The new Switch comes out finally, and we get some more games.
We can only hope. But there's going to be a mess. I wrote a whole thing this week about movie theaters because we were talking about The Flash and, in our other bonus round up about is there too much content right now for theaters, and which then Jim Viscardi pitched to us in a meeting, was like, somebody needs to write this, and we were like, click. Here you go. But I don't know. I forget what I was going to say. I started getting on Jim's stories now. I just totally lost my train of thought here. But it's going to be a mess. And there's no. Okay, here's what I was saying. And I made a joke on Twitter when I wrote that piece about movie theaters, and I said, brought to you by the writer of Stop Pretending, in big quotes, Stop Pretending a Pandemic Didn't Happen, which has been slowly driving me insane, is we keep trying to do things like everything's the same, right. And everybody's like, okay, back to, and no, there is no back. We're in Joker times. You've changed things. You can't go back. And I'm saying this to Hollywood, there is, what are you holding out for? I don't want to lean on this. We're not supposed to get into the strike and all this, but what are you waiting for? There's nobody's going back. Nobody thinks that these old contracts.
There's no scabs.
Yeah, nobody thinks these old contracts make sense anymore.
Right.
For the world we're in,
especially for streaming.
You can't stand on this. There's nothing you're just trying to stand on oh my God! You're trying to stand on the horse and carriage when we're building the car, and you're just
animation's next, by the way. There's the other one. The other outdated horse in the room is.
They see what's going on.
Yeah,
all those animators in the Spider-Verse offices.
Those two unions and stuff. That's going to happen.
Outside, drinking a coffee lucky bastards.
Because everyone's been retreating to voice work and animation and all these other things because all this other stuff was so topsy-turvy. Once that gets sorted out, $10 a year from now, we're having the same discussion about so many, because without noticing it, I feel like animation is very easy to look over. And when you look at just the breadth of how many animated projects there are that are super successful, are kind of like tent poles for their networks and services,
and a lot
that's going to hit.
A lot of it's in other countries, so there's stuff we're just it's out of our hands.
Right? Yeah, but some of that's going to come. It's going to come back around.
Anime is having the same thing. Manga and anime. There's been a revolution since the pandemic of mangakas not killing themselves to put out issues, and animators and anime studios getting more scrutinized about how hard are you beating these people to get this stuff out? You're not allowed to use the horse thing. We stop it there. Yeah. But I guarantee you're right. So. Let's not get too deep in this. I'm getting worked up. But, this is going to get messy.
Well, now I got to get deep on something else.
Yeah, we're going to get deep on something else. So we're going to talk about, moving on, our big movie review this week is, of course, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Eventually, I might want to, I don't know, if we're ever going to get to do a whole spoiler-filled podcast with this. I don't know if this movie sustains that. But it is... I grew up watching the Indiana Jones movies. They're right up there with Star Wars as some of the films that made me appreciate movie magic. Indiana Jones really shaped me as a kid because that was when PG meant something very different. And I was debating letting my son watch them, and I was even knowing what they are, and I was what are these rated? And I looked up, and those were the days when PG was very different. A man getting his head shredded by an airplane propeller, PG. Man's face melting, PG. It's all PG. Just take a parent, you'll be all right. But yeah, those were the ones that made me know about adventure movies and that whole genre with that, and 1930s serials and all that, and that whole flavor. And of course Harrison Ford and his charisma, and those movies are ingrained in me so deeply. When I think my wife would tell you one of our best bonding experiences is when she visited me for the first time during college summer session, and we spent July 4th weekend making hot dogs and watching the Indiana Jones movies and stuff like that. But I say all that to say that Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was quite disturbing for me on so many levels. I don't know who this movie's for. I think that's my biggest thing is who is this servicing? What is this about? Because this movie is very much about Harrison Ford basically being too old to be doing this anymore. And it's not in the fun kind of laughy way of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Danny Glover, I'm too old for this ish. It's in the James Mangold, who I'm beginning to wonder about significantly. About does this guy really like heroes? Does he like hero mythology? I feel like he doesn't. I feel like he likes tearing down hero mythology more so than building it up. And it's just I feel like he doesn't believe in it.
So
It's
does
kind
this
of
go
cynical.
the Logan route?
Yeah. Oh, very much.
Okay.
Like, it's not a spoiler to say, you see it in the trailers, that the first scene after this whole back in time thing, which is so weird. Please stop with this de-aging stuff. Please. Like, it's really weird. It does not make me feel like I can get back my glory days. It makes me realize they're gone, and now I'm a self-delusional maniac trying to get back to something that's never coming back. Like, those days are gone, and we can't go back there. Technology's not taking us back there. I'm sorry. There's things where Harrison Ford's face is like off to the side, and you can see some AI had tried to put together like all his old footage and like his expressions, and he's a man of big expressions. Like it's weird. Like there's some shots in there that are so disturbing. Other ones are good when they have like it in the dark train, but they really go for like the close up and the lighting in the train and try to make you think like, oh, we've done this, and it's like, nah, bro, you haven't done this. Like, stop showing me this. Like, it's really nuts. But yeah, then the first scene in the modern times is him sleeping in a chair, like, passed out from drinking, like, shirtless, and he gets up with the whole Logan thing, and it's like, this does not feel good. Like, I remember Harrison Ford as, like, sex symbol, strapping Harrison Ford, and, like, everybody ages, but I don't need to see this. And I think this is the break I'm having. I'm like, I'm on the Nicole Kidman side of things. Like, I'm on that Nicole Kidman AMC monologue. Like, this is where I go to see romance and heartbreak and my heroes stand strong and stuff. Taking me to a movie and being like, you're gonna get old and die is not what I'm signing up for. I'm signing up to get out of that, right? And this movie just made me, like, and I don't know if it's personal stuff, but, like, I'm middle-aged now, and, like, it just made me concerned for my parents. Sad that those days are gone, and now I have to watch a movie that really cements for me, yeah, this is over. And instead of me just having, like, these fictional things I can always go back to as this window of where Harrison Ford's always funny and vibrant and, like, you know, doing all that, which is what movies were always supposed to be like.
Yeah.
Like, actors get older, they just get out of the public eye. You all are hunting for Jack Nicholson. Leave that man alone.
Well, let him watch his Lakers
Yeah,
games.
let him watch his Lakers game. Stop taking pictures of him. We know he's getting old. Go back and watch Batman or something, or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or Easy Rider, and
be okay.
that's what movies are supposed to be. So we get out of here. And so this movie is kind of like the antithesis of that. It's really strange experience, and I don't think this is going to make my parents feel good. It didn't make me feel good as like a childhood lover of Indiana Jones. I don't feel like, oh, one last adventure. I was just like, these men are all, like, not just him, but all the people that try to be back. Yeah. Seeing them all age this way, it's like, yeah, this is not what I go to movies for.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So for me, because I understand that, that makes sense. For me, I actually like the humanizing of an archetype. I'm okay with that. And so I know from, like, certain interviews that, like, Harrison did, like, he wanted that scene of, like, himself, you know, almost naked and stuff in the thing, so that you could see, like, oh, hey, I'm a human, like, that hero has aged and things like that. So I know, like, part of that was the intent, but it only works to me if the end brings it around to something akin to what you're talking about, which is, like, putting that hero kind of tearing them down to a point to then show a new side of them and then prop that up. It only works if it's an arc.
Which
like, it only
Logan pulled that off.
Right. So does this do that at all at the end? Because then I'm like, okay, well, if that's not the point, then I agree with you. What was the point?
The ending is weird, and now they've been out and said no, there were no reshoots, there was no recut of the ending. Mangold's been very, very enthusiastic on that point. I'm not sure I believe that. There is a big jump in this, kind of like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but I bought this one at least. I was like, it fits in the framework of the movie and what we knew it was all about. But there is this moment at this pivotal moment where Indiana Jones is kind of nihilistically like, there's this whole theme that he's doing, which is an obvious meta theme, like, I don't matter to the world anymore.
Yeah.
Like, nobody really cares about me. I'm old and, like, you know, all of that stuff. And I don't know if they earn this kind of ending where it's just like, yeah, this is probably the end of Indiana Jones' adventures, but the character and his world and everything, a celebration of that and, you know, all that. I don't know if that earns anything. It just is kind of like a weird, muted ending to a weird story that I didn't need, where this character is clearly past his prime. But I sound like I'm being very negative, but as I say in, like, Twitter and other places, I did give it 3 out of 5 stars because it does achieve, in the middle section I think is the best, because in the middle you get just this classic Indiana Jones treasure hunting adventure with Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Mads Mikkelsen and Harrison Ford, and that is good. And there are times you definitely feel that magic again, like when they go into a crazy, cave labyrinth and they solve a mystery and they find, and the old music starts playing when they discover like the treasure finally. That stuff achieves that magic again. But again, there's just so much to the beginning and end paddings of this movie that are just so like weird and just like what to do with this aging hero, and it doesn't like necessarily feel good or funny in a way that it's just kind of like, yeah, we didn't. And I think that's what I came with, like, we didn't need to do this. I get it, people wanted more nostalgia and they wanted to continue to maybe fix Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but that window has passed, and we need to. And if anything, this is going to probably be the movie that knocks me out of the nostalgia phase, which is just like, okay, time to grow up. Like, things have moved on, people are gone, those days are gone. We can talk about old Indiana Jones movies, but we can't recreate them with Harrison Ford. You either got to pass the hat or just say, well, that was fun, but enough is enough, and let's do something new and go back to another National Treasure movie or something. I don't know. But, yeah, so I'd give this like a solid 2.5 to 3 stars out of 5. But don't do this again. Like, just stop with this franchise. Just stop. It's done. So that's what I'm going to say about Indy. That's all I have to say about that. All right, moving right along.
You want to take a break real quick? And then
let's take a break. Let's reset. This has all been depressing. Welcome to Comic Book Nation, the happiest show on earth. Let's get back and talk about some lively, happy things when we get back. We got to talk about The Witcher Season 3. We're going to talk about The Bear, Secret Invasion, a new Superman animated series, and some good wrestling and comics. So be sure to stick with us. I swear it'll get better. Janelle, we've missed you. Without you, we can't hear how our music slaps when we come back from break and such.
Oh my
It's
God.
so
I
nice.
couldn't hear it either.
It's so nice.
Yeah, it's so nice to get it. It gets us all hyped up. Anyway, so we're back. This is Comic Book Nation, the only show doing it all for geek culture, the official podcast of comicbook.com. If you missed the first half of the show, we did some depressing news rundowns about delays, disgruntled actors, and my middling thoughts on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. But to be fair, one of our lead video engineers, John, came in during the break and said he actually really liked it. So don't listen to just me. You guys take a survey of many opinions out there. Now, let's come back and talk about The Witcher. Matt has been over here waiting to cook. If you guys have not been following this show, Matt has been on this. He's a major Witcher fan, and ever since this series was announced, this man has been on it. So, Matt, here's the big day. The Witcher Season 3, Part 1 is out.
I'm actually very happy, by the way, that there is I have like another thing to look forward to with Part 2. Part 1 is the first 5 episodes. They are live on Netflix now. And I gotta say, so first, we talk about first impressions a lot on this show. I mean, Flash, you just mentioned Indiana Jones. Like, first impression matters a lot, right? I adore the first impression that season 3 makes because it gives us something that fans have wanted in the show for a long time. And like, that was actually one of the big critical points of season 1, because we saw everyone kind of in their own places. And in season 3, the first episode is just all 3 of them together. It's literally Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer all together, and they're still sorting through things. They're still dealing with a lot of baggage from before, especially Geralt and Yen. But there's just so much like warmth, as much warmth as Geralt can give. But that's also a credit for the rest of the season as well. But there's just there's dark stuff going on around, but like that sets the tempo for the rest of this season. At least the first 5 episodes is that there's a warmth, there's a bond, and it just makes everything else, to me, work so much better because you have this foundation starting off in the first episode, and then you can kind of move from there. Pieces start moving around the board, people do split off, but they do a much better job of still connecting everybody, because like at one point, Yennefer and Ciri are in a separate place, Geralt's in another place, Jaskier's in another place, but they still all feel connected because they're actually all working on the same thing, and they're just taking different angles, and they're still able to even communicate in some ways. So like they do a better job of keeping that trio and really that family, because Jaskier is very much a fun uncle in this one to Ciri, and those scenes are fantastic.
I was going to say, not to interrupt you, they definitely like rotate all the parties.
Yes.
So you get like Geralt and Yennefer and Ciri.
Yes.
Geralt and Ciri and Jaskier, which I didn't know I needed, but
oh my god, they're amazing.
Yeah.
And also to Geralt and Ciri's credit, I mean, they've been kind of the backbone of this series, but here, like, there's a whole sequence on a boat that is fantastic. It has to deal with a monster, which, by the way, we are going to do a spoiler podcast where we talk all spoilers about the season, so I'm saving all that stuff here, so no worries, I won't spoil what shows up, who shows up here. But there's a whole battle there, but really it's actually the conversations before the battle. There's another conversation later on in like episode 4 between Geralt and Ciri that, again, it's just like coming of age stuff. It's very much that father figure daughter relationship that they have, and then also Yennefer really feels more like a mom in this one, and there's just a real bond that kind of anchors everything else. Monsters obviously play a huge part here. I can tell you numbers. I can't tell you who it is, but right, I can tell you numbers. So there's about 3 or 4 in this first chunk of episodes. The ones that show up are pretty cool. There's one in particular that's awesome, that's kind of early on. I wouldn't say like anything. Like, I think in season 1 and season 2, especially season 2, season 2 starts off with such a great monster episode, especially because it was so faithful to the books.
The Beauty and the Beast one.
Yeah. It's such a great tale. So I think there's nothing like to me on that level as far as the monsters go, but they're still all really good and really awesome action set pieces. And also there's a lot of talk about, we're seeing here, this is one of my favorite clips because this is like in episode 1.
Yeah. A big battle of episode
such
1.
a good scene. Rience is a fantastic villain, but I also like all the political intrigue stuff that they keep playing up around him. He's very much a pawn, but he's a very good pawn. He's a very deadly pawn, and they start bringing in characters like Radovid and Dijkstra and Philippa, and they all have kind of bigger roles in this season, and I like that stuff that they're doing there.
You're familiar enough to kind of understand who everybody is by this point, which is nice.
Like, we've seen Philippa.
Which is my big thing from this season, was like, this is the first time, as somebody who does not read the books or play the games, that I was like, okay, like, I'm finally, and it's not just me having experienced the first 2 seasons, it's also the storytelling is in some ways a lot more kind of streamlined and simple, even though they're referencing, they still make it, they have enough scenes to kind of really ground you in like, okay, here's what's happening, and at least understand here's what people are about and like why their motivations are what they are. And as I was doing the reactions to this season before I came in here, people are loving just finally having these 3 actors and characters be the kind of central core of the show, which I think in some ways it wasn't, I mean, missing is a word because you had to get there, but like it needed that kind of emotional core, because it's hard to get emotional core from Geralt alone.
Well, and that's what I also love about, I mean, look, his performances, as you know, there's as many grunts as all, that is the character, but also like most of his conversations with Ciri, there is real emotive, like they're having a real conversation, and you can see, when I was talking, I had the chance to talk to some of the cast, and Freya especially, I was like, look, that father-daughter relationship, it's very easy for me to like move things from my daughter and see like there's a level of pride and the level of comfort that relationship evokes on screen that I have enjoyed with my daughter and also hope to enjoy, in the future. She's not killing monsters. It's only a matter of time. But like I love that stuff. What I will say is it is interesting how it ends, and I won't get into spoilers like what the episode is and things. But this season very much sets up a huge event that happens in the books. And honestly, there's been talk a lot about The Witcher ever since Cavill's exit was announced, about like how faithful it is and how not. There's whole scenes in this season that are like directly from the books. There's just like huge sequences that are just like not word for word, but very much evoking the spirit and hitting all those beats. So there's a huge one that comes that this episode 5 sets up for. So I was kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't, wherever they cut it. It is interesting that they cut it here. I would have probably liked a better cliffhanger. I would have liked a bigger hook to get you like, oh man, I gotta see what that thing is. But as someone who knows the books, what's coming is awesome, and I can't wait for that. I just don't know how it translates to someone who doesn't, who hasn't read the books and knows what we're gearing up for. That might be a very much of a kind of dud hook for them leading into 6. Also, oh my god, I always get his name wrong, so I always want to make sure I get it right. Yarpen Zigrin is one of my favorite characters in the whole thing. Jeremy Crawford does an amazing job. He has this whole potatoes line. I don't know if he talks about he's the dwarf that helps them get their place. He has this whole potatoes line that I could not get out of my brain the entire time.
Gnomes, like we was talking about gnomes.
Yeah.
He's talking about gnome nuts.
He's amazing. He's fantastic, and he deserves all the applause.
I've never heard somebody compare it to the size of gnome nuts, which really started me thinking. I was like, well, how, instead of me, I guess I get too much raunchy humor all the time, because I wasn't like, oh, that's gross. I was like, put on my glasses, like, metrically, how big are we talking here? Like, what are we talking? Gnomes? Is there something about gnomes I don't know? Like, what's going on?
He's amazing in every
that's
scene.
A great line. He's a great character. I mean, he's oddly sometimes the character I'm worried about the most.
I know.
Like the battles and stuff. I'm like, I hope this guy. I can't handle a death scene from this guy.
So good. So as much as I can, I mean, I've really enjoyed the season so far.
I had one question for you, and I saw this article, and just give me your thoughts real quick. I've heard that the transition, because this is a big thing, Henry Cavill to Liam Hemsworth, will be fitting with lore, and I didn't know that was like a thing that was possible. So there are, in the broadest terms, what they eventually might do. We've already seen it in bits here, right, of the spheres and how they're overrunning each other, crossing over, and people are able to step into other worlds. At one point in the story, Geralt ends up being taken to another world. And it's because he's just been badly injured. And so what the theory is that, well, in keeping with that, when he comes back, it's not Henry's Geralt. Sure. It's another Geralt. It's that world's Geralt. Maybe his character dies. Maybe his character is stranded there, and then it's brought over. It's the same Geralt, but also that allows for opportunities. Yeah, because if you think about it, you can have that character have big pieces of their history that are different, and you get to explore those. What's their relationship? Very much you could do similar things. I don't want them to do the exact thing, but like similar things with Star-Lord and Gamora. I don't have your memories. I didn't necessarily love how that was executed sometimes, but I'm okay with playing with that. Like, let's play with different histories and how that works. So that could be a way to do it. You don't break anything. It's already the kind of base is there. Also, season 2 established a lot of stuff with that like you can just use. They didn't do it on purpose, but happy accidents, right? So I think there's a way to do it where you can pretty much just keep moving forward with some new intrigue built in.
Having seen these first 5 episodes, are you still confident that people will stick with this show after Henry leaves, or is he doing too good of a job to where no matter what they do next, folks are going to go, yeah, but Cavill's not back, so I'm not sticking.
There's going to be, we talked about it in the DC episode with the Snyder group, right? There's always going to be people, and I've been seeing this and fighting this since that whole thing was announced, right? Because the minute that was announced, it was like, death to this is done, whatever. And that's just like a very, I don't know, to me it's a very simpleton way to look at things. However, there's going to be a group of people that just like, no, they're out. And that's fine. Like, there's going to be people that just can't get over the fact that Cavill is not that person, especially because Cavill is such a fan and has a built-in endearment to certain parts of the community, right? The Witcher community. And also a lot of people still, there's so much haze around, like, why did he leave and this and that, even though we really know why he left now. But there was so many kind of accusations thrown around and stuff like that. So there's always going to be those. However, I have seen some things, that I've disagreed with about the cast around him. I think in this season especially does such a great job acting independent of him as well as with him that I think it's just a write-off in the simplest terms to say, like, oh, that can't go on without him. There's enough there to do it. And again, we're not getting rid of Geralt. That's the whole... If we were getting rid of Geralt, I would say, like, you're bringing in a new character, create a guy. Yeah. I don't know. But we're not. And so it just really depends on their execution. If they can nail it and do a good job, I think they carry a lot of people with them. They won't carry everyone, absolutely. And there will be a shift. But I think you can still do it. So it kind of depends on how they do it.
I was just trying to look up the Rotten Tomatoes on this, and it's like, I can't even make sense of the scores for this show. Season 1 is like the most abysmal critical score, but the highest audience score. The one that was supposed to be so confusing. This one has like one of the higher critical scores, but one of the lower audience scores, which I don't trust. There's too many audience scores, which makes me think it's just a bunch of Cavill review bombs.
You're going to get some of that, yeah.
Because there's 100+ scores. I'm like, who's seen this already?
In defense of critics, which is not a sentence I usually say, Season 1 is kind of impenetrable if you don't know what they're doing. Because the whole timeline thing, I feel like, was the biggest mistake this show made up until this point. Is, well, you really have, unless you are familiar with the source material, you don't have a freaking clue why people are in different timelines. And you're like, oh wait, this all wasn't happening concurrently. Because if I didn't know you, I would have been completely lost.
That's fair. It was one of those things that was like the most hotly debated thing during season 1. Of like, I know it's confusing. Because I even talked to Jim, because Jim watched the first couple and he was like, I don't know about this, man, and I'm confused. And then by the end and stuff, he was like, oh, I like that stuff. It's just, yeah, but man, the scene, they're using signs. I just love this. But I will be interested to see the reaction to the final episode of this season of Chapter 1. Chapter 2, though, has 3 episodes. One of those, I will be very curious to see if they just spread it out over like 3 episodes and have like this really kind of epic thing, or if it's like 1 episode and then we move on.
Would you prefer like a Battle of the Bastards type thing where the whole episode is just one long ass fight?
I think there's enough there to do 2.
Okay.
There's enough there. There's enough that happens, and this thing affects so much of what moves forward. Like, there's a very few characters after this that aren't affected in some way. So I just very excited.
Janelle, have you watched any of The Witcher yet?
You should.
I have not watched it yet. I am very excited, but there's a big F1 race this weekend, so I've been really into.
Understand?
No, it's all cool. That's cool. At least you dressed the part today. You did some work.
Yeah, yeah, always. I will always rep Targaryen and Witcher until I don't. But yeah, I am very excited about this, especially like Matt. You definitely built the hype for me. I'm on pins and needles. I will say this though. My husband, who doesn't really like do the nerd stuff, he's never played the games or anything like that, he was totally into season 1 but fell off for season 2, so I'm alone on this. I can't watch.
Man, it's so interesting to me, because I thought
I'm never gonna make sense of what the show has been.
Season 2 is
beyond me.
Right, season 2, I thought they literally went in and went, okay, we did, and they were even admitting it in season 1. They were like, hey, we're getting everybody on the board where they need to be. And then in season 2, they will. I mean, the first season ends with like the uniting of Ciri and Geralt, right? So season 2 was supposed to be more than, and it had more people together. I just think in this one they do a better job of like having them all interact in some way, even if they're not in the same place. So
I'm just happy that the Netflix season 3 curse doesn't seem to ever lift. It's just like every time we get to season 3, things get nuts with people and opinions. All right.
Get nuts. Let's get nuts.
All right, so that is The Witcher. Let's move on. Secret Invasion episode 2. So we don't have to take too much time. We have a whole Marvel podcast, Phase Zero. Go listen to that. They break down the second episode really well. But I just want to get a quick survey because I'm just interested, because I got to screen the first 2 episodes, and I said and I was very clear that I thought season 1 or episode 1 had more intrigue and action. I said episode 2 was a more slow burn, but let the actors, and kind of really was the showcase that, hey, this is a prestige series. We're letting these actors cook. Like, this is what we're going to do. And that's very much what episode 2 is. It's conversations. It's Talos and Fury. You know, it's Olivia Colman's character. It's seeing Gaia begin to do things and getting to know Gravik more and all of that stuff. And then, of course, that spicy ending. But we'll talk about that. But I'm just curious to go around and see what you guys are thinking about this show now, 2 episodes in, because I think I need a barometer for where we're at here. Let's, Janelle, did you watch?
Yeah,
what'd you think about episode 2?
So, well, I will say that I did watch it kind of similarly to you, Kofi, because I did miss last week's. I was in the middle of the ocean. I didn't get to see it. So I watched 1 and 2
together,
back to back, which was very rewarding, in my opinion, especially with that cliffhanger on episode 1. That was
I stand by. This should have been a binge. I stand by that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on this. But this is obviously like a totally different style of show. With Marvel, I think it's definitely kind of scratching an itch that I'm really happy to see in the MCU, and I'm really excited about what they're doing with it. I'm not getting like my superhero fix, but I am enjoying like more of like the sci-fi feel, which is how I feel because of aliens and things like that. So I really enjoyed the episode. I don't think anything crazy happened. At the end, I'm just confused. Maybe I don't understand the lore enough. I'm just kind of like, wait, what's going on? Like, there are moments where I don't know what's happening. My husband is also in the same boat. I think that I was starting to lose him a little bit, so I made him watch episode 1 of She-Hulk after we watched this, and he actually dug it, and he was like anti-She-Hulk, like, no, everybody hates it, everybody says it's terrible, and then I made him watch it, and he actually is on board, and he really likes She-Hulk too, so it's cool.
Matt and Connor, how you guys feeling about it?
Did you watch it?
I've been moving, so I haven't.
Oh yeah, sorry, Connor.
No, I agree with both of you. I can see both sides. I think this was a good episode. And I agree with you. I think it would have benefited from, not even if you do the binge, though I am a proponent of binging on streaming stuff. Like I like the binge model.
The binge
7 out of 10 times. I think it's actually a better model for certain things. But in this case, I think at least having the 2 episodes premiere back to back would have been good. Like having just a 2-episode premiere would have been really good, because there's enough of that. You really get to sit in this world and some of those conversations are really good. It is slow. And I do worry that, I just hope, not even worry, it's not a worry. I try not to go there anymore. But I hope that in the next 2, we really start to maybe pick up the pace in certain aspects, because I don't want this to do, a lot of Disney Plus shows do the whole, let's literally just like move at a snail's pace for the first 5 episodes, and then in episode 6, or we move for episode 1 through 4, and then in 5 and 6, there's so much, they throw so much at you because they have to finish up things. I don't want that to be the case here, because that would be kind of antithetical to what the show is. So I kind of hope in 3 and 4 we get a little bit more movement, a little more carrot, and then maybe 5 and 6 can really just hit the ground and be a smooth thing.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of questions. Obviously, this episode does some teasing of what we're going to get, like an MCU version of a Super Skrull.
Yeah.
Is kind of teased in this one, with all the different pieces they're trying to get from Frost Beasts and Cull Obsidian and Extremis and things. People have kind of broken down that this might be your bootleg components your bootleg components of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Like Stretching, Extremis is fire. What's the other one? I guess Cull Obsidian would be like the Thing. And then, did the Frost Beast turn invisible? I don't remember if that was a thing they could do.
Remember.
Anyway, I don't know. But this is like some bootleg Fantastic Four stuff some people are speculating. So we're going to see, and I'm interested to see. I'm interested in the whole thing, and I've been listening to some other podcasts like Midnight Boys about this, because they got into a whole thing about about Nick Fury being married to a Skrull. They've come out and confirmed that he knows his wife's a Skrull. I didn't believe this was like a debate based on the episode, but it's because of one edit, because she transforms before he comes around the corner, which could be saying something about their relationship that has tension that needs to be worked out, because he only kind of maybe accepts this thing when she's in human form and prefers that for her. They obviously have a complex relationship rules because she like makes him put his ring on. She makes him go back to the door and put his ring on, and she transforms into a human. But he knows that she's a Skrull.
Right.
She's also the Skrull from the beginning, in case anybody's like not piecing this together. She's the Skrull that introduced him to Gravik and is obviously like more of a social worker type, trying to help her people get relocated and stuff like that, which would make sense about how they connected, right? So, yeah, that's who she is. Her name's Vara, and her name in the human form is Priscilla Fury. And, like, yeah, Vara's actually a character from Marvel Comics, a minor character, of course, nothing to do with this, except she's a Kree-Skrull hybrid warrior. Anyway, so he knows his wife's a Skrull, and, like, obviously this is a new character turn for Fury, and, like, I just need to know like what this series is going to pay off, and if it actually pays off anything towards the Marvels.
Yeah.
Which is really kind of like where I'm getting worried, because if this doesn't connect to the Marvels in some significant way, like what are we doing? And like what is the MCU anymore? Like we're just in different weird disjointed places where characters are showing up kinda, but like we can't explain these show ups.
Well, especially when it comes to the cosmic side of things. It's been so fast and loose.
Yeah.
And honestly, the only one that's ever really felt tethered was James Gunn, but that was because he was in control of that little bubble, you know.
And I think this is the problem with Secret Invasion is it's asking us to accept the importance and the deepness and the richness and the complexity and tragedy of this kind of refugee story that we've seen once. Kind of. Yeah. And we didn't even know it was a refugee story till halfway through the story.
Right.
Where we're like, oh, we got to take all these years of comic book stuff and then realign that. Now we're supposed to come back with all these unanswered questions because they've never touched this because it was a retcon. So nothing in the MCU's actually touched where the Skrulls have been. How have they been influencing things?
Yeah.
Like, and all of that. If we can get... I need for this series to do at least one episode, and we are a third of the way done with this series.
That's what's worrisome.
I need one episode that does that, and I think they could save this whole thing if there's an episode that goes back and addresses some key, a flashback episode. What happened to Fury after the blip? That whole thing needs to be addressed.
It seems like that will, because they keep mentioning it, so that feels like it will.
Also, I would love to do a thing like what WandaVision did with their penultimate episode where you went back through Wanda's life with Agatha and they were looking at the different things for her to kind of access the power. I need a flashback thing that shows you all these moments in the MCU that they retcon into, there was actually Skrulls present to be influencing things this way. And locking down, when did all these Skrulls come to Earth? During the blip? Yeah. Like, when did that happen? Was it because there was only 1 million of them left that Talos was like, well... You know, now that we're the only ones left, everybody come on down here. Those all need to be solidified by the end of this series. Because in that whole thing, I think with the flashback is showing you, no, this is all these things you saw that we can retcon, like old scenes with an actor transforming into a Skrull or whatever, or just a minor person in a scene. That would be significant to me in the larger MCU sense, that things we thought were just kind of moving along a certain way are actually part of a plot, or the Skrulls have an ally, or whatever it is.
That's why the story works so well in the books.
Yeah, and if we don't do that, if this just becomes a Nick Fury-centric thing and he stops one Skrull terrorist and now he's going to do something new with the Skrulls that they put off for another 5 years, then this is a really bad sign for the MCU for me.
All in the Game mentioned... because kind of drawing comparisons. So you were then disappointed by Werewolf by Night because there were no wider universe connections. And my thing is, those are two. I understand the connection there because they're two very
quite the opposite.
Disparate. They're two different areas of the MCU that haven't been thoroughly explored. I understand it from that kind of broad connection. But what I will say is they're completely different as far as approach. Marvel has said and done several movies now in the cosmic universe, and just left things that could have been tethered, connected, off the straight. We'll get to that later. And this was literally an introduction to a whole side of that universe that has not been explored. So that was very much... If you come back to me in 8 years and they haven't done anything with it, and then all of a sudden there's a Disney Plus series that go, hey, remember all this stuff that's really important? Then absolutely, I will go that's the same thing. But for now, I think they're two different things.
Yeah, one's a Halloween special, the other is an adaptation of a famous late 2000s event comic with
Also-
a noticeably smaller scale
Right.
than that original event had or it calls for.
Also,
Because
like,
we're calling for something big here.
Yeah.
I think that's a self-defeating comparison because Werewolf by Night is like the shining example we hold up of here's just a Marvel hour-long special. And in that special, like a good short story, and I'm getting a little literary here, but like they definitely paintbrush an entire series of history, events in an entire corner of the Marvel universe.
In an hour.
In an hour. And, it's
And they
just,
did it
and we know
well.
everything. Everything from the choices they made. Bloodstone's passing hands right now. Okay, what's that about? Oh, there was a whole history of monster hunters and this guy who had this powerful object. Oh, there's a whole world of monsters and monster hunters out here. And yeah, they're underground, they're clandestine, they don't talk to anybody. It's like a secret society. We get all that. There are these heroic monsters that are fighting their own monstrosity and trying to save things. Like Man-Thing.
Man-Thing's
And
amazing.
Werewolf by Night. And they've been through some ish.
Yeah.
We know. Because they've been through some serious fights against, like, vampires and things like this. So this is all established in an hour.
Yeah, in an hour.
And y'all
And
forgot
I know more about, like, the Marvel horror universe than I do about anything in the cosmic side.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
And when y'all decided to rank your Disney Plus shows, I wasn't here for it. You forgot to include Werewolf
Yeah,
by
I did.
Night, and I was
We did.
so mad.
We did. I think maybe Matt.
One of us did.
One of us did.
Because I came in the segment after and said, the disrespect
No.
y'all are showing my boy Wolfie.
I
It wouldn't
did-
have been on mine. So
I did
I
5.
counted it.
Mine was the one after.
Yeah,
it was
you
6.
had like honorable mention or something.
Yeah,
like
I did
that.
an honorable mention because I was like,
I lamented that I had forgotten it.
it was on
and
there.
mine.
So at least I included.
But I know. No, Werewolf by Night's been one of my favorites. So
right.
I think we're not going to get too bogged
I
down.
love
like
how we
said.
said, "Oh, we're not gonna get too into this,"
bogged
and then
down.
like 20 minutes later, we got too into it.
Yeah, they got to show something significant that moves the MCU forward. I mean, Winter Soldier was not just about Cap finding his friend. That was a whole thing, and that changes went all across the board. I think this has to be the same thing. We also lost a lot of good cosmic real estate because they didn't want to make Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. official canon.
That's true.
And we did a lot of Kree exploration and going into space and
That show got weird.
Oh yeah, but weird in the best way. Shout out to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Jamie Jirak,
No,
we'll
yeah,
hold it
that's
down
her-
here.
yeah, that's her favorite.
No, I love it. I'm a quiet one, but I was there for every premiere night. I was there first run. I didn't binge anything later. Love you, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Anyway, moving right along. So let's talk about a couple things on TV. I just want to shout out real quick The Bear Season 2. As I mentioned, we'll mention John again. We came in. The Bear Season 2, you worry about sophomore slumps. I got like 1 or 2 episodes left, but this show is like the antithesis of a sophomore slump. Not at all. The show has continued to take off. It's expanded its scope. A lot of the first season was like very claustrophobic in the restaurant. All of them kind of huddled together and cramped together, and what that was and the volatility of that. This one literally and figuratively expands its horizons like much wider. Characters split up. They have their own focuses, their own storylines. They go to like other awesome destinations like Copenhagen, where one of the world's finest restaurants is a whole episode. There is a flashback episode in this of a family Christmas dinner, which is one of the best episodes, is the best episode of TV I've seen this year,
Wow.
and one of the best episodes of TV I've ever seen dealing with like family drama and stuff like that. And I'm not going to spoil it. Twitter's been blowing up about it. It has so many guest stars in it, so many like good cameos. I mean, I thought Dave season 3 had some cameos. This brings together a bunch of actors for this crazy like at the table family drama thing that is, like I said, one of the best episodes of TV I've seen. And so yeah, The Bear is just this dark horse unlikely kind of series that has just come out and like fascinated us, and sophomore season is really good. So it's on FX, on Hulu, or just on Hulu. Yeah, it's a Hulu original. So yeah, go check out The Bear Season 2.
Yeah.
Matt, you have some
that's
things
right,
on your
yeah.
agenda list?
Got a couple things. My Adventures with Superman. It's been a big year for Supes. So this one is the Adult Swim series that is also followed up with episodes on Max. This one has Jack Quaid in the role of Clark Kent, and this has been super fun. I mean, we were talking about Legacy a lot and kind of what we want to see, and this one, I think it's awesome that we have multiple versions of the character that can do so much with the same kind of core elements. And this one, I love the timing. So this one firmly puts Clark and Jimmy are going to be interning at the Daily Planet. Lois is an intern at the Daily Planet already, but she's just still an intern. So they kind of enter all on the same playing field. Like, yeah, she's been there a little longer, but like they're still on the same spot, and she's not revered and respected as Lois Lane, the hit reporter and stuff. So they really feel like a trio, like right off the bat. Like the first episode establishes so much. Like Jimmy feels like a real character as opposed to just being kind of a Clark sidekick. You feel like he's really into like conspiracy theories and stuff, so he kind of goes off on tangents. Clark is just Quaid's great. I mean, he plays it just real super. He's honest. He's just got a lot of heart. Lois is hilarious because she's very Lois Lane in the fact that like she owns a room, but it's great to see like she doesn't have the power she typically does. Like she doesn't have that thing where she goes in and everyone's terrified of her. They're like, oh my god, please go away. So it just does some really fun stuff. The series, I love what they do with the suit because the whole Kryptonian thing. He comes into like he's not super aware of it. And the only time he's ever had any kind of encounter with his Kryptonian history and stuff, it went terribly. So there's a great scene with like Ma Buck and him, and so when he does have to kind of come back to it, it's like he doesn't want to, but he just has to. And so it's just really interesting to see kind of this antagonistic relationship with Krypton and his history, because in a lot of ways, in a lot of other interpretations, he's always looking for it. He feels like he's missing something and there's this void. Here, he's perfectly content. He's happy. He likes what he's doing. I think it's super fun. And so definitely recommend giving it a shot, especially right now. You're looking for Superman stuff. I think it's great. Also, it does appear that it's been cleared for 2 seasons. So we are going to get more of it, so you can actually invest some time and not worry about like, oh hey, it's going to get canceled after 6 episodes or whatever. So that's my adventures with Superman. Am I next, or is that you, Kof?
I believe, yeah, you're still. Okay. This is your agenda.
Oh my god!
All the way through.
Okay, so was it last week or the week before?
Last week.
Yeah. I talked about Nimona, and Nimona hit Netflix. It's available now. If you watch one thing this week, and you're like bouncing back and forth, I watched Witcher, and of course I adore Witcher, but my lord, Nimona is phenomenal. It does so much. I was watching it, and Ember came in. They came in from a walk outside, and she came in the middle of a kind of action sequence, and she immediately went, oh my god, can I watch? I want to watch. It has this, like, the animated style is like adorable in some ways, but it also lends itself to like Nimona as a character is actually kind of dark. He's got to constantly kind of temper her down. She wants to like break everything, destroy everything. She's very much like, oh, are we doing a murder? Like da 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 da. Like, she's hilarious, and that's Chloe Grace Moretz doing the voice. Fantastic. And so he's always kind of trying to temper her down, but she's a shapeshifter, and so she shifts between all these different forms. So like at one point, she's like shifting between a fox and then a rhino, and then she becomes a dragon, and then the dragon shifts to a monkey.
Who's the he for the people who are not watching the monitor with us?
So this is actually Riz Ahmed plays Ballister Blackheart, and so Boldheart. And so it's got a great cast because Eugene Lee Yang plays Ambrosius, and those are kind of the 3 tentpole characters, and it's different from the books. It's different from the book. I came onto it in the graphic novel, but it's actually based on a webcomic. Shout out to Selena, who got me hooked on this, and I will forever be grateful. So they do make some changes as to like how they come together. She wants to be his sidekick because she thinks he's a villain, and then the plot goes on, and you realize like he's not really a villain. And here it's kind of about this big setup and mystery. In the book, it's actually like it's deeper than that, and there's more to it. And so kids will love it for all this. Like, there's an ostrich, right, just turning around. But there's a really, like, great, deep, emotional kind of human story about feeling like an outcast and displaced. And so I think like anyone who watches it, I think will love it. So I say, like, while you watch one thing, this one you could get away with watching with your family, and they won't get everything. But I think you will, and you'll walk away, and it's awesome. So I'm so happy to see it become a reality. I couldn't talk about it more. It's fantastic. You should watch it.
All right. That's Nimona on Netflix. Matt's clearly excited. It's a Netflix animated movie be sure to check that out if you're not checking out The Witcher already. All right, Connor, it's your time to shine. It's wrestling time. What's happening this week?
It is wrestling time once again, Matt. We find ourselves in a weird spot in the WWE right now. Cody Rhodes is spinning his wheels. The Bloodline story has gone from being, oh, for the love of God, can we please end this, to back kind of redeeming itself in a way, with the Usos splitting and an alleged civil war now taking place.
Gotta have faith, man.
There are a lot of backstage reports coming out recently about Vince McMahon increasing his return and involvement in creative to the point where now rumors are coming out that people are trying to Vince-proof certain stories and certain booking decisions. That part is not going to end well. But in the midst of all of that, we have Money in the Bank this Saturday. It's over in London. Kofi, give me your best UK accent for real quick.
Oi, you're trying to tussle. Let's hustle.
Perfect. Now that we've set the mood, I won't front here, guys. UK fans are absolutely insane. So
it's gonna be
nothing
a great
else.
crowd.
We're all but guaranteed a fantastic crowd, even though the card is And I feel like a lot of weight was put on the two Money in the Bank ladder matches for the two respective briefcases, the men's and the women's. And as I was opining to you before this episode started, they have kind of broken this concept. This used to be one of my favorite pay-per-views of the year, one of my favorite gimmick ideas of the year, this briefcase that ensures you a world title match at any time, at any place over the next year. The problem is that basically since Dean Ambrose cashed in 2016, it has been a parade of bad decisions, weak Money in the Bank briefcase holders, a lot of failed cash-in attempts, and even the ones that do work out. Big E is probably the best of what we've gotten ever since. What it leads to winds up being a disappointment.
That's my biggest issue.
His title reign was a nothing. And then on the women's side, it's almost like they don't want it to exist, so they have the winner cash in either that night or the next night so they can get it out of the way.
It's been, what, since Carmella?
Since Carmella. There have been 4 since then. They've all done the exact same thing within 24 hours.
I liked Liv's cash in, but I didn't like how it turned out.
Fan favorites like Liv Morgan cashing in, that leads to disappointing championship reigns. And then last year was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was Austin Theory.
Poor Theory.
Not only him winning, but then breaking the concept of the briefcase by having him cash in on Seth Rollins, the United States champion at the time, in an open challenge, by the way. Everyone forgets that extra layer of dumb that was added to it. And then he loses that too. So not only was it another unsuccessful, mediocre Mr. Money in the Bank, now we're saying, now it's not even a guarantee that whoever wins this gets to be elevated to the main event scene and become a world champion. Now it's, we just haven't cashed on the Intercontinental Championship or the United States Championship. Is that good enough for you, sweetie? It's so disappointing, to the point where I look at the lineup this year and it's like, if you give it to LA Knight, it's going to be great, in that there's going to be a great reaction and everyone on Twitter is going to go nuts, and there's going to be a lot of gifs, and there's going to be a lot of whenever he shows up on SmackDown, because he's over as hell right now. But if it doesn't actually lead to him cashing in to become world champion, what are we talking about?
Now, in that case, I think so. It's unfortunate because Theory was the not beneficiary, whatever the opposite of beneficiary is. He was the whipping boy. Of just bad of things that were in place that were far larger than him that they weren't going to break, which was essentially like Vince uniting titles and things like that. They were not ever going to sacrifice Roman.
Would have stopped that. Nothing was stopping them from having him attempt to cash in on Roman and fail.
Right.
Nothing.
But they didn't go that route for whatever reason. They go for, but everything in wrestling is so like, just because there have been a couple bad ones.
Rules matter until they don't matter.
No, rules matter, but I'm saying things don't really last in wrestling. Like, just because the last couple have been bad does not mean... Well, no, I've liked lives. I've liked cash-ins. I haven't liked what's happened after. I've liked cash-ins, though. I'm okay with some of those decisions. It's just they didn't lead anywhere, and that was what disappointing. But the cash-ins themselves... For me, I'm always very much like, it's a new year. It's a new thing. I wait to see. It's very hard for me to kind of fall into they always do this, because there was 3 bad Royal Rumbles in a row, and then they killed it with 2 in a row that were fantastic. So I get a little I can see I don't check into that as much, so it doesn't wear on me as much as it wears on you. Clearly,
because it's been 6 years in a row.
It doesn't bother me. It's a new animal. I'm good. LA Knight should win. This is another case like we talked about the Rumble of like the obvious is better. I think LA Knight winning is better. That's a big pop. Hopefully you can do something with it and not drop the ball when he actually gets it. Same way for me is Io Sky. That one came out of nowhere, but if you've been paying attention to WWE over the last 6 months to whatever, she, again, has just kind of gotten herself over. It's just been...
Because she's great.
Yeah, she's good. Also, because there's, elements you can play with Bayley and the destruction of damage control and all that. So if you do that, that's a great way to jettison that into gear and push that.
The obvious elephant in the room. The obvious prime energy drink shilling elephant in the room. And some questionable things on YouTube and that have been said about him. It's Logan Paul.
Yeah.
He's in the ladder match. I do not think that just because he's in the ladder match means he needs to win the ladder match. He was in the Rumble. No one was begging for him to win the Rumble. He'll get a viral moment out of it. He does not need to hold the Money in the Bank briefcase. He does not need to be a champion in this company.
Agreed.
Be honest with yourself. If you are watching this show for Logan Paul, whether he's holding a piece of gold on his shoulder or not is not going to determine that decision.
Not at all.
He is the draw for that segment of the audience.
Yes.
He does not need to be champion.
And I think you honestly draw more ire if you put it on him. Granted, he's a heel. You can do heat, that's fine. But I think it draws more of the ire that is not beneficial. It's the constant churning of reports of morale and backstage thing. It's that, and I think that's bad heat.
I will tell you this: if he wins, the photo of David Arquette holding the WCW World Championship is going to pop up a lot on social media.
Yeah, it's very true,
and that would be warranted.
Well earned. No, I 100% agree. Nick Valdez put that out into the world of Logan Paul could win it, and I am on pins and needles because I want LA Knight. I'd even be okay if anybody but Logan Paul won in that match, but I want
Shinsuke Nakamura's got a little Uzi Vert song now. Let him win.
Do it. I don't care. And same with the women. There's not really that. I'm okay with all of them really winning. I have no problems. I don't think Becky's winning because Trish and Zoe are in the match, so I think that's going to get
Trish
thing.
I know we all want Io.
That
but
could happen
Trish
too.
Wins. I would hate that for Rhea, but they're not really doing anything with Rhea as champion right now anyway.
Rhea's kind of impenetrable at this point. Rhea's Rhea. Yeah. Rhea can show up anywhere, and she's Rhea. She's going to get over.
She's showing up on this show as Dominic's manager, and
everyone loves it because she's Rhea. So I don't think it necessarily hurts her.
Now let's talk big picture for a second because we don't get to do another one of these for a minute. SummerSlam is Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso. Because I think that's where they're going with this whole Civil War story is either Roman's team is going to lose or Jey is specifically going to pin Roman. But because it's a tag team match, there's no changing of the hands, but it does immediately put him at the front of the line for a title shot. Yeah. Is that match enough for a SummerSlam main event?
Oh, yeah.
Explain.
Because in opposition to you, who has not been as sold on the Bloodline storyline as even you've had ebbs and flows this entire time.
It was great, and then April happened.
Your argument just crumbled. That's what I'm saying.
It was great, and then Cody happened.
Even before then, you had months you'd be like, well, he hasn't defended it. Well, he hasn't done this.
I've always had issues with the number of defenses.
The story was worth it. I stand by what I said back then. I would love for him to have it. Nah, I'm good. It's one of the best parts of SmackDown every single week, and I'm in it. And then just when you think some people go, I don't know, they do some at a pay-per-view, and that's the most compelling thing of the night. It doesn't matter. So yes, Jey versus Roman, when they tell the story right, which they've been doing, I can't fault them on that. And the Jey Jimmy stuff has been fantastic. So yeah, that's enough for me. I understand some people won't be, but that's enough. That's enough for me.
Cody should be fighting Roman at SummerSlam, and Cody should be winning. They're going to make us wait all the way till next April, and I'm not happy.
I made peace with that. 3 months ago. I'm good. I know it. So a lot going on. We will obviously have coverage and everything on Money in the Bank.
Indeed, we will. It will be this Saturday. Remember, it's in London, so it actually starts at 3 o'clock Eastern over here in the States. So it's not a usual night pay-per-view, middle of the day.
All right. I don't know how much time we have, but Matt.
I'm going to roll through these pretty quick. So the good news is, Janelle, did you read the books?
I did, yes.
I have someone to talk to, because Cody and Connor did not.
Of course I read the comics. I love my weekly comics.
So it's just going to be me and you moving to this pretty quick, which is good. So it's going to be first, I pulled something different. Kobe was very shocked at my picks this week.
Yeah, usually I just read, and I usually know what you're going to pick, and I just don't even think about it
There wasn't anything really that screamed out loud to me, and that was also in ways approachable. So The Oddly Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos #1 is from James Tynion, who writes some of my favorite books. Something is Killing the Children is phenomenal. I've liked several of his books, but that one is beyond my favorite.
Wind was good. Did that
Wind
finish,
is good.
Or because I miss the finish
it did.
Okay.
I think it did. So there's. I'm always willing to give his stuff a shot. I know Kofi's a big fan of the house.
Nice House on the Lake.
Yeah. So I'm always willing to give it a shot. This one was a little. It sets the initial premise, and it takes a minute to get there. And essentially, it's about a kid who is gifted in ways of being able to see how things work, and he's able to kind of he's almost like an inventor in a way. He's able to see equations and put things together, and he takes a game system and he converts it into this thing. He's we can do 4D, we can play in 4D, and then it explodes. But that's the kind of thing we're going for, right? But he's also he sees splits in the world, and some of it starts to, he doesn't know what's real and what's not, and so we start dipping into the supernatural and stuff like that. And then werewolves are in the picture later, and this secret organization, and it just goes. He resuscitates this bird. This pigeon. That was such a weird Frankenstein, as Frankenstein, he literally brings it back to life. There's a lot of trippy stuff in this book. I don't know if I'm going to stick with it, because I don't know if it hooked me like that. But Janelle, I'm curious to what you think.
Yeah, there were many times I was asking myself, what is going on? But I like it. But I like it. I thought the artwork was really cool. It did pull at my heartstrings a little bit, tugged at my heartstrings. I did feel for this character so much. So I would be interested to continue it, but it's very sad. It's a very sad book. It's kind of a hard read in that regard, especially if you've ever been kind of a victim of bullying or anything like that. So I am curious to see his story. I do want to know where they're going with it. I wish they would have established a little bit more.
Agreed.
So that I understood more, but I am intrigued.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I will probably give the second issue a shot just to see where it goes. Next, we have Star Wars Dr. Aphra #33, which I simply put on here because, #1, I love Dr. Aphra. #2, Luke Skywalker's in the story with her, and because she kidnapped him in the last issue.
I'm psyched for this one.
And frankly, that was it. I read the description and went, yeah, I don't care. I'm going to just jump on in. And there's a lot of stuff, obviously, Kofi would be able to speak to this more than me, because they're in a place that is kind of established as this, they think anyway, it's this Jedi temple. It's this ancient Jedi place, and they're safe there. And then there's a big twist kind of towards the end. It's oh, that's not what this place is. But along the way, you just get to see Dr. Aphra interacting with a Luke Skywalker who is not the Luke Skywalker we will see later, right?
No, he's having a trouble. There's something that happened in one of the last crossovers that has messed with the Force for Luke and Darth Vader and a bunch of other people, which is interesting. Yeah.
So it deals with all that, but it's just a fun playground. To me, you don't even need all that to be just oh, I like seeing these two characters together. And Luke, to me, can always use a little bit more fleshing out and contrast with another character who is as charismatic as Aphra. Janelle, what do you think?
I thought it was great. It was really, really interesting and super fun. I really liked what they were showing us with Luke. I love seeing him have weakness. I love Aphra is so funny, just such a quirky little character that I just love. And yeah, it was cool. I mean, as a casual Star Wars fan, this totally was awesome. Like, no,
Right.
I had no problem with it whatsoever. No qualms.
That is why I didn't go with the Apocalypse one, by the way, because there was so much stuff in there. I was like, it's going to lose people.
I've been trying to get through that one. That's the one that kind of is holding me up. There's a lot in there.
Real quick, I read Power Rangers Unlimited, the Coinless, because duh. And it's dope. It's dope.
I would have read it if you put it in there.
Okay,
honestly,
next time there's a Power Rangers thing, I will put it in there for you, so that you can read it.
Yeah.
But this is essentially for Lord Draken fans, who is the evil Tommy Oliver. This is great. He goes and forms his own team of Rangers, and he goes back and he does it on his world that has become like a shell of itself by things he did. he set things into place that just like essentially made his world uninhabitable, and like the remaining people in there are living in this redefined like refrigeration unit, and so they like go to like establish, you know, Jason is like this old grizzled guy who's sitting up on the tower living in an apartment up there with a shotgun and like shoots Draken as soon as he comes in. It's just fun, trippy Power Ranger stuff, and Draken makes a new team of Rangers. It's kind of self-contained, and it will feed into the big Ranger event that's coming. But yeah, it's fun. It's dope. I'm going to read it. Recommendations, real quick. New X-Men Omnibus hardcover. This is a lot of hardcovers this week. If you're looking to jump into New X-Men, I feel like I talk to someone every couple years that's like, I just discovered New X-Men.
You're pushing P over here. I can't believe you're still trying to push this.
Nightwing Volume 3, The Battle for Bloodhaven. I love this series. You should read Nightwing. Good. Fantastic. Yeah. Coda Deluxe Edition. Again, another slept-on series. Simon Spurrier. It's a fantastic book. It is now in trade. Gorgeous collection. You should grab it. And then Summoner's War Awakening. This is actually based on a video game, but this series kind of came out of left field, and it's just so fun. It's like this old school adventure book. It's got sky pirates. It's just really fun. So you should definitely read it. The new series is out, and this is issue 3. So that's comics.
All right, that'll do it for our regular show. This is Comic Book Nation, the only show that does it all for geek culture and the official podcast of comicbook.com. As we said at the start of the show, if you're just now jumping in with us, if you've been jumping on because of The Flash or the summer movies, welcome. Be sure to subscribe to our Twitter feed so you can get all the latest updates at Comic Book Nation. Comic Book is one word, -Nation whenever you put these things in. Subscribe to our YouTube page and on your favorite podcast platforms, because we put out a lot of bonus content, guys. Today alone, we have an AEW breakdown that's on the YouTube page we put out this week. We have a whole mini episode where we talk about the Superman casting and where the DC is after the Flash bombing. We have this episode out now. We have a whole Flash spoilers discussion episode that's really, really good. So there's a lot out there, so make sure you subscribe and keep up with all of it. As soon as we're done here, me and Matt are going to talk about The Witcher some more in full spoilers. So if you are a fan of The Witcher, be sure to be on the lookout for that as well, because we're going to break down The Witcher, what happens in Season 3, Part 1, what we think about what's going to happen with the series going forward, and all of that. So be sure to tune in for that as well later today on our YouTube page and on podcast platforms. Otherwise, we want to say have a good day, have a good weekend to you guys, and we will see you next week. I think we have like one slow week here for a minute. Oh, we might talk some Insidious, but I don't think that's going to be a big thing. But then it gets crazy again, because we're going to have Mission Impossible, Barbie, Oppenheimer.
Barbie!
Some things could go down in Secret Invasion finally, and yeah, it's going to be nuts in July again. So
hyped for
great time
Barbie.
to get into the show, because in doing it all for geek culture, there's going to be a lot to do. Then there's going to be nothing to do. So stay tuned for all of that. This is Comic Book Nation. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
This is...
Later.